It was supposed to be a normal voyage, a way to find a new home, rest and relaxation on a ship, and that's how it started out for Tom and Jerry, but it quickly turned into a nightmare. Tom was excited to go on a ship. He had never been on one before, and just the thought of being out at sea and enjoying and relaxing during the voyage just appealed to him. But most importantly, he wouldn't see that annoying little mouse Jerry. Tom had packed his things and had set off onto the ship. He arrived and couldn't believe how monstrously large the vessel was. It was almost 900 feet long from what Tom could see. A marvelous man-made construction, he thought. But just then, he looked at the passengers and saw them smiling and waving towards those on land, and he couldn't help but join them and say goodbyes to strangers he had never met before. Time passed and Tom found his cabin, and it was below deck, where the other less financially fortunate passengers were, otherwise known as the poor. It didn't matter because of where he was heading, the land of the free known as America. He had heard about how you could start over, and the cat wanted to make a name for himself. After walking for a bit, Tom found himself at the bow of the ship, and as Tom peered out at the open ocean, he couldn't help but feel like he was the king of the world, especially since he was on the supposed grandest ship in the world, the RMS Titanic. But Tom's smile faded when he saw a familiar face. A little mouse on the rail of the ship looking out at the water. It was Jerry, and somehow he had ended up on the ship as well. Tom began to well up with rage, and his face turned a bright shade of red. This was supposed to get him away from his old life and problems, and this mouse was not a part of the equation. So like what Tom always did, he began to chase Jerry. All throughout the ship, from the bow to the below deck, all the way to Tom's cabin. That was when Jerry scurried his way inside and slammed the door into Tom's face, knocking the cat out, but at the same time, Tom kicked Jerry towards the wall, knocking him out as well. The two woke up and stared at each other. But then, they just laughed. All that and for what? They were on the grandest ship in the world, headed towards a new life. Why did they have to fight? So, the cat and mouse duo decided to start over, and they decided to be friends instead of enemies. The two made up and apologized for everything that they did to one another. Tom asked where Jerry's cabin was, and apparently they were cabin mates, so they decided to bunk together. Jerry got top and Tom was on the bottom bunk. That was when the two other cabin mates walked in, a black cat and a bulldog. They introduced themselves as Spike the bulldog and Butch the cat. The four got to know each other and decided to play some cards as an icebreaker and to kill some time. The hours passed, and it soon turned to night, and after some fun, Jerry, Butch, and Spike were passed out. Tom decided to go for a stroll around the ship. He made his way up top and peered out at the starry sky. That was when he looked over and saw a beautiful white cat looking up at the sky as well. She was leaning over the rail, but as she was looking harder and harder, she fell over. But that was when Tom ran up and caught her from behind. Tom pulled her back and made sure she was okay, which the white female cat was. After this, they introduced themselves to one another and laughed about how clumsy she was. Her name was Toodles, and every time Tom looked at her, it was like his heart skipped a beat. Tom the cat was in love, even though he had just met her. He asked her where she was staying, and she said that she was with her family in the more financially capable part of the ship, otherwise meaning she was a rich girl. Over the course of the night, the two got to know each other and talked until the sun came up, and both realized that it was best that they got some sleep. They said their goodbyes, and after Tom got back to his cabin, he went to sleep with a smile. After he woke up, he told his cabin mates about Toodles, and they couldn't help but laugh at how often Tom smiled. Then he told them about her being rich, and that's when Jerry put two and two together, and told Tom that Toodles was actually the captain's daughter, here to visit her father. Jerry had heard stories about the captain and his success, but that he was also ruthless when it came to his daughter, and those that had gained her heart. He told Tom to just watch his back, and the cat told the mouse that he would. After that, they played some more cards and then decided to go get some food. After they were done eating, the four were walking across the deck of the ship when Tom saw Toodles again and told the others he'd see them later. Tom ran up to Toodles and the two began to talk once more. They talked about life, where they came from, how they grew up, and just everything that they could think about. And it was just about evening. The two realized just how much time had passed and they decided to call it a night there. But however, what they didn't notice was that they were being watched. The captain had discovered what was going on, and he decided that Tom wasn't good enough for his little girl. He sent 3 cats who were thugs to go teach him a lesson, and when Tom started walking back to his cabin, they jumped him. Tom was caught off guard since it was 3 against 1. The cat was getting beaten relentlessly by the 3 thugs. He didn't get a chance to defend himself, so Tom was taking hit after hit. But that was when one of the thug cats screamed in pain and Tom saw that Jerry had bit his tail. The other 2 were caught off guard, so this gave Tom an opportunity to fight back. He pushed one and then punched him, and then he tackled the other one, punching him in the face. The thug that got his tail bit by Jerry picked him up and threw him against the wall, causing the mouse to wince out in pain. That was when the cat who threw Jerry kicked Tom in the face and threw him to the wall as well. Beaten and bloody, Tom looked at Jerry and the two just smiled at each other. The three thug cats walked towards the two, but that was when Spike and Butch jumped in front of the two, and Tom and Jerry got back up. The thugs saw that they were outnumbered, so they just decided to walk away. Spike asked if they were okay, and Tom and Jerry said they were. Jerry said that this must be the captain's doing. Tom understood what Jerry finally meant. However, this didn't deter him from wanting to see Toodles. Later that day, Tom saw Toodles again and told her about what happened. She didn't want to believe it, but she remembered what her father had done in the past, and she realized that Tom was telling the truth. This made her think about her life and what she truly wanted. All her life, she had insisted to what her father said. She felt like she was stuck in a bubble, but with Tom, she felt free. She felt like herself. Tom was traveling to America to start a new life, and she decided she wanted to be a part of that life. She told Tom that she wanted to go with him and be with him. The two cats embraced one another as one of the thug cats watched. The thug cat walked off and told Toodles' father, the captain. He was enraged. How dare some mangy, low-life street cat try to be with his beautiful, perfect, purebred daughter? He was going to put an end to this no matter the cost. 2 days passed and it was the 4th day of the Titanic's voyage. With everything going on, little did everyone know that the ship was on collision course with the bottom of the ocean. Tom woke up and he thought about Toodles and what she had said. Over the course of the last 2 days, they grew closer, and even though it had only been a few days since they had met, he felt like she was the one. Tom got up and him, Jerry, Spike, and Butch went to get some breakfast. After that, they went to their cabin and played some more cards. They played well into the evening, and Tom realized how much time had gone by. But that was when they got a knock on their cabin door. Surprisingly, it was the captain, and he wanted to introduce himself to the feline who had gained his daughter's heart. Tom was hesitant, but the captain invited him to dinner with his family. Tom looked at Jerry, who shrugged, indicated that what he got to lose, so Tom decided to take the captain up on his offer. That was when the captain finally introduced himself as Terry, the captain of the Titanic and father of Toodles. It was already 6 p.m. and dinner would be at 8:30, so Tom decided to try and get ready. He had his pals help him out, and for once, Tom didn't look like a poor street cat, but a well-groomed feline. He couldn't help but feel proud, like he was moving on up in the world. He thanked Spike and Butch for their help, but then he looked at Jerry and just gave him a smile and nod, and Jerry did the same. The two had reconciled, and they were beginning to form a bond. Tom went to dinner, and as he sat down, he couldn't help but feel nervous. He felt out of place, like he didn't belong. But then Toodles, who sat next to him, held his hand under the table and looked at him, and he felt at ease. Captain Terry could sense something was amiss between the two, and he felt like he was losing his grip on his daughter because of this mangy street cat. Some time passed and dinner was over, and the passengers started to split off into groups. And that was when Toodles said she needed Tom for something and excused themselves. Captain Terry knew how fast he was losing his daughter, and he wasn't going to let that happen. Toodles and Tom ran through the ship, laughing, all the while holding hands. And while in a secluded part next to the rails where no one could see them, they embraced one another, but little did they know, they were being watched once again. That was when the 3 thug cats came out from the shadows. They said that a rich feline like Toodles didn't belong with a filthy furball like Tom. So while one grabbed Toodles, the other 2 attacked Tom. It was 2 against 1, and Tom tried his best. He got 1 clean hit on one, but one of the 2 thug cats grabbed him from behind while the other started punching him repeatedly. Tom was being beaten to a bloody pulp, all the while Toodles screamed for them to stop. However, it only continued. That was when the thug cat who was punching Tom pulled out a gun and pointed it at his head. He told him that he was going to blow Tom's brains out, and then dump his body into the icy depths below, and then he was going to bring Toodles to the captain. Tom seethed with rage. It was him all along, but before the thug cat could finally end Tom, there was a loud crash as the ship hit the iceberg. This gave Tom enough time to push the thug cat off of him and to punch the one holding the gun in the face and kick it away. He then punched the one holding Toodles, and the 2 ran while there was another loud crash, which caught the thug cats off guard again. Tom and Toodles ran for their lives to the bow of the ship where they saw what the ship had hit. They were shocked and couldn't believe it. They had just struck an iceberg. Tom realized what this meant. The ship was going to go down in a matter of only a couple hours. Tom needed to get Toodles out of here, but Toodles said that they needed to try and get as many people off the sinking ship of doom as possible. Tom reluctantly agreed, and that's when they ran into the ballroom and started yelling that the Titanic was going down. People were shocked, but after that loud crash, they began to fear the worst. The crew began to get life rafts unloaded and started to board people on them. However, there wasn't enough, and Tom also realized this. They needed to go now. However, as they were running through a hallway about to warn more passengers, Tom was struck across the head with a lead pipe and knocked out. It was the 3 thug cats once more, and they grabbed Toodles and then dragged Tom towards a secluded part of the ship with rails. They were going to finish what they started. Tom awoke to sounds of screaming and chaos as he saw a gun pointed to his face. He tried to warn them, but they didn't listen. The thug cat was about to pull the trigger when a gunshot went off and Tom closed his eyes. He opened them, only to find out he was fine, but the thug cat holding the gun grabbed his chest as a bullet had entered his body. Tom saw that it was Butch. However, before Butch could react, another one of the thug cats grabbed the dead one's gun and shot Butch multiple times. Butch grabbed his chest, but he wasn't done. He shot the second one, who picked up the gun in the head, but as he was about to shoot the third one, he ran out of bullets. Butch, shocked, staggered back, but held on to his resolve, as he knew he was at death's door, and he was going to take this last bastard with him. That was when Butch ran towards the last thug cat, and the two fell over the rail and plummeted into the icy depths below towards their deaths. Tom, in shock, ran towards the rail and looked over the edge, and all he could see was darkness. Butch saved them, but he also sacrificed himself. He wouldn't let his death be in vain. He was going to save Toodles no matter the cost. Tom was still a bit injured, but he managed to walk it off. The ship was coming apart, and it was only a matter of time before it sank, and they needed to get off it as soon as possible. The screams of people could be heard as everyone was trying to rush to the life rafts. The crew were trying their best, but not everyone could be saved. That was when Tom saw Spike and he waved at him. Spike made his way over to the two. Spike asked where Butch was, and Tom said that he was dead, but that he had saved him and Toodles. Spike put his head down in sadness, but was glad they were alive. That was when out of nowhere, a gunshot went off, and Spike fell to the ground, dead from a bullet wound to the head. Tom was shocked, and when he looked over Spike's corpse, he and Toodles saw the perpetrator. It was Toodles' father, Captain Terry. He spoke, saying, "You filthy fucking mutt," kicking Spike's dead body. Tom, enraged, ran towards the captain, who just cocked him in the face with his gun, which knocked him to the floor. Toodles ran to Tom's aid and screamed at her father. She said that she hated him and that he was a monster. Toodles continued saying that her and Tom were going to escape this nightmare and they were going to live their lives together, and that he was never going to see her again. At this point, Captain Terry lost all rational thought, and decided that if his daughter wanted to be with some mangy street cat, then he'd put them both out of their misery. He aimed his gun at the two, but that was when something crawled up his leg and stabbed him in the eye. Tom looked up and saw it was Jerry. Captain Terry screamed out in pain and grabbed Jerry and threw him against a wall. Jerry winced out in pain, and Captain Terry held his bleeding eye socket, saying that they were all going to die. Tom and Toodles ran to Jerry's aid just as Captain Terry picked the gun back up and pointed it at the trio. That was when the ship began to break apart. Captain Terry shot the gun, but Jerry managed to jump and block it in time. He told Tom to take Toodles and get out of there, saying that he needed to survive. Tom didn't want to leave Jerry, but he looked at Toodles and realized he needed to save her. So while Jerry distracted Captain Terry, Tom took Toodles and ran. As the two ran, Tom thought back to Jerry, of how he had sacrificed another friend. However, that was when the cat made up his mind. Even through all the chaos, Tom took Toodles and they made it to one of the last life rafts, and Tom helped Toodles in. Toodles held out her hand for Tom, but he didn't take it. He looked at her with a solemn look on his face. She didn't understand why he didn't take her hand, and Tom told her he couldn't leave Jerry. If he did, he was going to die. Toodles begged Tom to come with her and to not leave her alone. Tom held her hand and told her that she was the best thing that ever happened to him, but that she now had to live her life, even if it meant he wouldn't be a part of that life. And with that, they embraced one final time before the life raft started descending into the ocean. They looked at each other, and Tom smiled, before yelling that he will always love her, and she did the same. And with that, Tom ran out to go and save Jerry, while Toodles could only watch. She put her head down, but she realized that Tom was trying to save his best friend, and she was going to respect his wishes. Jerry was getting tossed around and beaten to a bloody pulp by Captain Terry. He told him that he was going to step on him and end this, but that's when Tom tackled him to the floor, before Captain Jerry could stomp on Jerry. Tom looked at Jerry, who was shocked, and asked why he came back. And Tom told him that he was going to save his best friend. No, his brother. Jerry just looked at him, and he felt the same way, and the two nodded at each other, and they faced Captain Terry. The captain just looked at this and laughed, saying that Tom could have had a chance with his daughter if he didn't come back, but now that he did, he was going to enjoy killing them both. Tom ran towards Captain Terry and started to attack him, which the captain easily defended against, while Jerry jumped on his back and started to bite his back, but made his way towards his neck. The captain gut punched Tom, which made him drop to the floor wheezing, and then grabbed Jerry from the top of his back and slammed him onto the ground. Tom saw this and wasn't going to give up. He ran towards Captain Terry, but he slid as he did, tripping him, which then gave Jerry the chance to get back up and run with all his might to try and push the captain overboard. However, the captain managed to evade Jerry just in time, but Jerry flew off the rails of the ship, but Tom managed to catch and save him. All across the ship, it was chaos, but this fight wasn't going to end until there was a victor with the other dead at their hands. After about 10 more minutes of constant fighting, the three were exhausted, but that's when Captain Terry saw the gun and died for it, with Tom trying to stop him. The captain managed to shoot Tom in the arm, but Jerry managed to knock the gun out of his hand and into the water below. At this point, Captain Terry was enraged, but that's when the ship began to capsize. It was starting to break apart. That's when a crack opened up and enlarged where the three were at. Before they knew it, they felt water at their feet and they knew what this meant. However, that's when Captain Terry smiled and pulled out another gun, aiming it at both of them. He laughed maniacally, saying that none of them were making it out of this alive. If he couldn't have his daughter, no one could. Tom and Jerry grimaced, but that's when a large metal part of the ship fell in the middle between the three and caused a massive wave of dust and knocked all of them back. Tom awoke to more water and he saw Jerry, who he held up, but that's when he saw Captain Terry hanging for his life on the rails. Tom ran to try and help him, but Captain Terry screamed at him, saying that he wasn't going to let some mangy cat save him. So as Tom tried to grab his hand, the captain let go, but as he did, he shot a part of the ship that caused it to fall behind Tom and Jerry. But with Captain Terry laughing as he fell to his death to the icy depths below. Jerry was shocked as he looked over and saw, with the captain's final shot, he had trapped them. Tom cursed the captain. Even in his final moments, he was still an evil bastard. Both the cat and mouse realized their situation. They were trapped, and they couldn't escape. They knew they were going to die, and with that realization, the pair could only laugh together. Tom held his wounded arm and Jerry was limping from a broken leg from being tossed around. They both looked up at the starry night sky and reflected upon their lives, how they treated each other in the past, all their past grievances. None of it mattered now. The two laughed and hugged each other as the water continued to rise and the ship continued to sink. Toodles could only look on and she began to cry. She knew that Tom and Jerry were going to die, but at the same time she smiled because she knew they were together. Best friends until the end, no brothers until the very end. And with that, the Titanic sank into the Atlantic, causing the deaths of about 1,500, with Tom and Jerry included in those deaths.